I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, and I'm located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Monroe, Washington. And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey folks, thanks for listening to Wheel Talk. We would love some more interaction with you all throughout this future episodes, and we would love to hear some listener questions. They may get on the episode.
Yeah, just submit them to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com, or you can submit them on our Instagram at wheeltalkpodcast. Thanks.
Go.
Okay. Oh.
Are they actually pretty close?
Yeah,
on
no, they are
the
very
timing?
close on the thing. There's a
Okay,
few times.
so we're in sync.
There's a few times that one of us lags a little bit or not, but
I mean, we both have a Mac, so I think they run off the same clock.
they do. They do run off the same clock. Yours is a little older than mine. It could be a little slower. You never know.
Maybe.
You never know. We're live.
We are.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Becca.
How's it going?
Happy
How's
Wednesday.
today?
So there's a lot of home happenings in the Durbin household this week. We've got our kitchen floor being remodeled.
And you're doing it.
So we're... No. We hired somebody to do it. We've already done tile work in our spare bathroom and our master bathroom.
That.
So we were like, with this being like the kitchen and the work that we put into demoing those rooms in the past, let's just hire somebody for that.
That's a smart move.
So, I mean, it'll get done within, a week's time or whatever, versus our master bathroom took like 2 months or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, with this being the kitchen and like there's appliances sitting on these things that we had to move out of the way, I don't really want to be in that state for a long time. So yeah, they're kind of to this state today. They ended it with everything stripped off, demoed. There's no more tile, there's no more backer board, and then there was like a layer of some kind of, not a cardboard, but probably like a masonite or something underneath that. And they got all that up. So I think tomorrow they're going to start laying the new backer board, and then we'll see if they're going to mortar and start tile, but I don't know.
How exciting.
But yeah, so that's what's happening. Yeah, Rachel's been bugging me to do this since we moved in, and yeah, we've lived here for 4 years now.
And now it's time.
Yeah. She's already got to this part of the list. She's already got 60 other projects done on the house before this, so it's to the point where it's like, okay.
Yeah, coronavirus did not help
this.
your project list denial, did it?
No, I mean she's still finding things to do. Like she just got a new sewing machine.
Oh, I saw
that she's converting, and the projects are
your
never
wife
ending.
is unbelievable, like incredible. I just love how much energy she has. I'm tired watching the projects that she does.
Well, the thing is, she said she's a lot more motivated during Corona because she wasn't working. She's one of those introverts and is drained by people. So even if she works 2 days a week, like now she's working 2 days a week and she still feels drained. So
yeah,
she works a day and she needs a whole day to recover and kind of get back to somewhat normal. Or she can do a little bit here and there on a project, but she can't like just full out, okay, I'm going to go work out in the morning and then I'm going to work on a project for 8 hours. It's more like, okay, I gotta like recover a little bit and sit and watch Netflix for the day because I worked yesterday.
Recovery day.
That's kind of how she operates. So yeah, that'll be good to get finished and on to the next project, I'm sure.
Hooray!
Onward. Yes. So yeah, nothing much else going on besides that. I would say work is work, and yeah, I've got some shows this weekend, but yeah, we'll see how those go. I'm sure we'll have updates next week on that.
Nice.
How about you? How's your day going, or your last couple days?
Let's see. Today I've done a little bit of work this week. I've had a little bit more energy, and yeah, it's been good. I threw some planters yesterday. Made some planter plates a couple days ago, and kind of just like going along, I suppose. But
Are the planters for an update, or are they for a wholesale, or both?
They're for a wholesale. I've got a pretty big wholesale thing going, and I've got some other orders that I've got to get to. I'm really struggling this year on like putting off orders, like really struggling. In the past, I've been pretty okay. You know, I make lists and stuff, and because of coronavirus, I haven't been making very many lists, and like I'm just having a really hard time with like, I recently learned, so I have pretty significant ADD, and I recently learned that people with ADD tend to put off like projects, not because they can't do them, just because it's not like, I don't know why, but like,
it's not pressing enough?
Yeah, I guess it's like not pressing enough, and it just kind of like goes by the wayside. And I'm like, I do that all the time, and so I'm trying to like not do that, I suppose, and I'm not doing a very good job. But
what's kind of a mitigation for that? Is it setting like one big priority for the day and kind of
the way that I've done it in the
like
past,
that, so you slowly
the way that I've
dwindle?
done it in the past is that I don't like doing things over time. So the way that I've done it in the past is that I will take all of the projects that I need to do and then do them all in one day. That's how I do it usually, but yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
But other than that, everything's been fine. I mean, it's been pretty boring with just chilling, I guess. It's like, you know, coronavirus, the shop's open, but nobody's coming in, so it's like twiddle your thumbs and do all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So
I have a list that I've been crossing off this week slowly.
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I got like two lists that are almost identical, but one of them is just like a general to-do list that has a bunch of tasks that are not ordered based on the day. And then the other one is day by day, and like what I from the master to-do list, it's got like what I plan to do on each day.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly crossing things off. So
month lists work really well for me, like what to do each day, like plan out the entire month. Like generally.
Do you have the balance like, okay, I can, like, I'm to a good stopping point in the studio, so I need to cross off one or two things off of my list that I don't want to do right now? So you can slowly dwindle it, or...
Yeah, I guess.
'Cause that's kind of what I did yesterday.
You're so much more productive than I am right now. Like, if we were talking 3 years ago, I would have thrown you into the corner and beat you down. But now I just, like, I don't even know what's wrong with me. So I'm working on it, you know, taking vitamins, and I'm just tired all the time, so, yeah. Working on it, though. I've been a lot less tired this week. Other than today, for some reason. Today I'm exhausted, but yeah. Yeah.
Are the people coming in the shop helping at all with, like, okay, I know that time's going to be dedicated to these people coming in, so I have less time to get stuff done that I need to get done?
I don't know.
Versus I have all the time in the world on this entire week because no one's coming in and no one's depending on me.
I don't know. Like I said, coronavirus has really thrown me for a loop. Because, you know, especially during like the thick of it, it was like, why should I work if nobody's gonna, like...
What am I working towards?
Yeah, like,
if there's
what
no
am I working
guarantee
for?
Or there's
like,
no good
and, you know, really, I was
and...
just, like, really, all I'm working for is paying the rent. Like, I'm not really working for a profit right now because it's just not out there, you know? Like, for me, not for other people, but for me. I also had a lot of people that were total bitchy, like, to me at the very beginning of the pandemic, saying, like, you better not be turning a profit off of the pandemic. And I'm like, okay, first of all, the pandemic is going to last a lot longer than 4 weeks. But, like,
Are they saying you shouldn't be advertising yourself,
right.
kind of?
Yeah. And so I've been kind of, like, struggling with that. And then the whole... Yeah.
Is that individuals saying that to you, or is that just the social media thing of, like...
No, it's individuals. And I'm not really turning a profit. I am making enough money to run the shop.
That was related to take-home kits, right? And
yeah, it was related to take-home
the donating,
specifically. Yeah. And but yeah, and it's just been hard mentally. This whole situation has been really tough mentally for me. And so now when I'm like, oh, I have stuff to do, I'm like, why? Like, I should just sit here and do nothing. Like, you know, like, I know I am working on stuff, but the rate of what I'm working on, like, if I had been at peak physical and mental positions at the beginning and the end of coronavirus, I would have so much shit done right now. And right now, I'm like, meh. 20.
It sounds like you need to take a little break and like paint or something.
2020 is the mental health year.
Come up with some fun thing that you don't normally prioritize, because it's like, if you don't feel productive working, then maybe you would feel more healthy with painting or doing something that you haven't done in a while, or you don't prioritize when you have no time to do it.
Right, yeah.
I don't know.
I did paint this like last week. I did kind of like one night I like didn't do anything that day, and I was like, fuck. Like, I need to do something, and so I got a board and just painted something, and it was good. It was good, but I'm working on it, and I'm house sitting next week, so that should help for a couple weeks. So that should help, and then I'm gonna try and while I'm house sitting, because they have a garage and they have tools that are readily accessible, I'm gonna take the van and try and get that figured out. So finally, not really. I don't want to trick it out, but like, I want to at least
pimp my clay van.
I would like to at least insulate the van and put walls on the van. I'm not gonna do any fancy electrical because the van is worth a grand total of $200. So I'm not gonna like do any crazy electrical, even though it does have solar panels on the top. I will be doing
throw some Pink Panther insulation in there and just
I will be doing some walls, and then I'm redoing the front bench so that it folds down into a bed, and I will leave a spot that I can eventually put the electrical in, but I'm gonna plan it into be a post thing, because I think that personally I get intimidated by the fancies parts, and then I'm like, I just won't do it. And so if I can just do the part that's not fancy, like the woodworking, that's a piece of cake. I can figure that out. You know, the electricals, I know it's easier once you start doing it, but I just don't have the capacity to do it right now. So
yeah.
But yes, anyway, moving on. Let's listen to our question.
So we would normally go to a listener question here, and I actually kind of got this question through Instagram and thought it would be good for an episode. I did answer her directly, but this will kind of funnel into what we talk about today. So this came from VA Arts and Pottery, which is Vanessa Anderson. She asked, hey, I have a random question for you. I was approached about selling wholesale. Are there any aspects of selling wholesale that I should think through before doing it?
Yes.
So
now,
I think we haven't really talked about wholesale, just the two of us.
No.
We did at one point, but we never released it.
Yeah, that was like our first episode or something, and I said stuff, and then I changed my mind, and I was like, I can't release that episode. So, that's why we haven't done
Becca
one.
didn't want that documented so people could be like, you said this, and now you said this, and it's not the same.
Yeah, so...
You're not allowed to change your mind.
No, you're not. Yeah, it was interesting because it was actually about the whole pricing of wholesale, and so many people out in the wholesale world or the world of selling things are just so concrete in the fact of like, if your price is $12, they sell it for $24. It's like always a 50% markup, like no matter what, 50% or less, and or even just 50%, like no matter what. And right around the time that we were doing the first episode, there was this conversation on Facebook, believe it or not. And by the way, I feel like this is a good moment to emphasize that we are human and we can change our minds. And they were like, I don't give a crap how much people sell my stuff for. And at that point I was like, cause at that point I was dealing with a wholesaler, but one of my wholesalers sells my products for more than I retail for. And, I asked a few friends and I was like, should I be concerned about this? And Rebecca Graves was like, no. She's like, you sold your piece for your price. You've said your piece. Like, you've let it go. They can do whatever the
you're
heck
happy with
they...
that price.
Yeah, you're happy
side.
with the price. They can do whatever the heck they want with it. Like, if they can get that market for it, then so be it. You know?
If you don't have like some contract with them that says,
right,
I request that you sell it at this price.
Right.
And that retailer is not, down your street, or
no, they're in like
city, so
3 cities away. They're my best wholesale customer. They're like my favorite wholesale customer, and I was like, I don't really care. At the end of it, I was like, I'm gonna sell my piece for this price. You can do whatever the heck you want with it. And I have since then gone that route, and I'm really happy that I did, because then it doesn't put the pressure on me.
And they're in a different market, right? So they have customers that can buy it at that price.
Oh, yeah.
It's not...
People that buy plants are just rich.
And that's mainly why they do that,
yeah.
right? There are other products in the store. If your planter is sold for $24 normal retail and their cheapest planter comparable is like $36.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big jump. Maybe they would price it higher at like $32 or whatever it is. So it's a little closer.
Okay, sorry, that was kind of off topic, but so let's circle back to the actual question again. Like, what are some tips and tricks about wholesale that...
Yeah, are there any aspects of selling wholesale that I should think through before doing it? So,
contract.
I mean, you came up with a good point about okay, go ahead with contracts.
Go on.
Do you have contracts, or
I started off with contracts, and I think it's important to start off with contracts. Yes. So, I have a blank contract if you want to email me.
What email is that?
At 5 lines pottery at gmail.com. I believe I have a blank contract that I got from a friend, and I think I went through it and I removed all the important stuff. I won't be sending you hers that she sent to me, but I can send you the one that I have. And so
it's probably just a sheet with a description and like a price and a quantity, and
it's not even that. It's a contract basically saying that you and the wholesaler are going into an agreement together, and it's your first contract. That way you can get their you can get their UBI number, you can get their sales like all their numbers and their business number and license number and everything like that in order, and you can have it all in one place in a file. And if they ever do something against the contract, you can say, you were supposed to do this, and you're not, and this is why I'm dropping you as a customer. So it is important. However, I started off using contracts, and now I barely use contracts because I barely have any clients. I don't have a ton of wholesale clients anymore. It's not my main squeeze. So,
would you say doing interactions through email, so there's some kind of paper trail, is good enough if you do not do contracts?
Yes.
So you have some set agreement on
absolutely
what numbers you agree to and the quantity and colors or whatever.
Absolutely. And I would say also a lot of the reason why I don't use the 3 customers I think that I have that I don't have contracts with is because I know them and I've known them for a while, and if they screwed me over, I'd just be like, later, and I'd leave. So right. No skin off my back. But yes, definitely have email, do correspondence through email if you can. But yeah, the contract's nice to have. And even if you just write up a contract, say, hey, you're agreeing to, especially if you want them to sell it at a certain price. That's specifically what
that's
the
where
contract
you would add that in there.
Helps you with, is like, hey, I will be giving it to you this. I want you to sell it at 50% over what, what the price was. So that's helpful.
And that's mostly important for your neighborhood. Like, I have a few shops that I do consignment, but mainly, similarly, they're going to price it at the same price that I would retail it, so that they're not pricing me out or I'm not pricing them out.
Also, let's see. Always, if it's your first client or your first account, like if it's your first time dealing with the new client, always get payment up front before you deliver goods. I do that as a kind of, what's the word?
Are you saying full payment or partial or
at least
deposit
partial?
Or...
At least partial. Cover your costs at least. But also you want to make sure that you get your payment up before you deliver the goods. You know.
Definitely get the money,
right?
Or
definitely.
handing something as a transaction when you're delivering.
Yeah. Like.
Especially if you're shipping it. If you're shipping it, definitely make sure you get payment before it.
Absolutely. Like, if you don't know your customer, like, again, rules can be broken. I'm not saying that I follow all the rules. I also don't have very many customers. I have one customer down in California who she always pays me. I know her. She's nice. And I send her the goods. And once they arrive intact, she sends me a check. But the first time I ever did business with her, she paid first, and then I sent the goods. So,
did she do a deposit that first time, or did she?
I don't think so because
I don't right think so. Before delivery.
I don't think so. I also make sure, like, it also depends for me if I'm making a product that I can sell in my normal line, or if I'm making a specific product. So the Humboldt account that I have, I make products that are specific to them, like they say Humboldt, California on them. So I can't sell that. Like, I can't resell that if I...
That's like a custom.
Yeah, it's custom. So getting money up front, especially for a custom. Now, if somebody screwed me over on a group of planters, I could throw those up on my website and sell them. It wouldn't be that big of an issue. I'd be getting more money for that. But, so it's not that big of an issue. I am not a professional wholesaler. I know I say this a lot, but do your research on wholesaling before you get into it. And I treat my customers with a very relationship based. You know, I talk to them on a regular basis, like we've become friends. That's kind of like I go out to lunch with them. We have that kind of a relationship, and that's what I've made a point to do. So if you're working with customers that are like when I worked with Starbucks, it was very, you know, there was no fuss, no muss kind of stuff, and you had to sign contracts. I had to sign what are those non-disclosure forms? NDA. Like, you have to do all that stuff, and then, but also you have to make sure that you have like, that would have been a great. I didn't know what I was doing when I did the Starbucks job, and because it was like my first job ever, and if I had known what I was doing, then maybe I wouldn't have gotten screwed over by Starbucks. By the way, never worked for Starbucks. Working, like, doing wholesale for big companies is really hard because they change their mind, and it's not because they're not thinking, they're just not thinking about you as a
not a factory.
Yeah, like
a handmade human that is
right. They don't think about you as hand
making
making it. Like, when I did it, I had made all the things, and then they came back and they're like, "So, can we actually make that 12 instead of 25?" And this, you know, and they like, I had so many extra of one item because I had already made them, and I was young.
Are you talking about quantities?
Yeah.
Like they wanted different colors or something like that?
Yeah, and they wanted different quantities, and I was young and dumb and didn't know how to like handle it, but. So that's what you want to avoid, I suppose, is you know, make sure you have set numbers, set expectations, you know, say this is what I will be doing. Is that okay? They can sign off on that, or they can send you an email saying, yes, that is what we agreed to. And then you send them your stuff, and then all is hunky-dory.
So you mentioned the items that you are making. Does the whether you're making a custom thing specific to that retail shop or whatever, does that change whether you accept a deposit or not? I would say that could factor into whether I accept a deposit or not, besides just if I've done it with them before.
For sure.
If it's something that I already sell and I know I could just pull it off the inventory, or I could just pull the bisqueware and glaze it to the specifications and colors they want,
Right.
but it can also sell normally, then I might be more likely to like take a $30 deposit for a $200 thing, or a $50 deposit or something, or just no deposit, depending on I've worked with them before.
I won't take a deposit on orders that are just regular stock
that you could sell.
Yeah. If I was going to do a custom order for a client the first time, I would do it would be a 50% upfront.
How do you factor in, because the other thing that I mentioned to Vanessa when she asked, I talked about being comfortable with what forms you decide that are willing to be wholesaled.
Oh my God,
because I do not wholesale every item that I have, because it just doesn't financially make sense. You know, it's easy to wholesale shot glasses, cups, mugs, planters, things like that I'm comfortable making a lot of, and I can efficiently make them, and chopping them in half price-wise is not such a hit to me, versus saying I'm going to make 50 black and white carved mugs that retail for $48 a piece, and I'm going to get $24 a piece for them. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to like kill myself trying to make these things.
Yeah. Also, I feel like we should interject right now and say, if you haven't listened to the Rebecca Graves podcast that we did with her, you should go listen to that as well. Either before you listen to this one or after, because she talks about pricing wholesale and actually just pricing pieces in general. And essentially what I and her do, what we do, well, her and I, what we do is we price our pieces according to our wholesale price, and then we retail off of that. So, or she does, I kind of do it.
What does that mean?
So that means you take your, and we've already done the episode where we went through and decided how much a mug cost, or a cup or whatever. But you take the cost of the item plus the labor that's involved plus the packing that's involved, and then you take that and then you add a certain percentage that you want to make a profit off of, and that's your wholesale cost. And then off of that, you multiply it to make your retail cost. Okay? So, a lot of my items are not like that because I priced them way long ago when I didn't know what I was doing, but I've kind of just worked up and they work for me. They fit into the mold. They just fit in backwards.
Right.
But yeah, so keep that in mind when you're pricing your items, because you need to make money at wholesale cost. And it also depends on if you're making a ton of stuff or not. You know, like if you're a true production potter, making a cup is a piece of cake. It's nothing. It's like walking one step forward. So when you are pricing out your pieces, you have to take that into account, like what your pieces are. So like with going back to what Ryan was saying, was with Ryan's stripy cups, that would not be his wholesale price, is his retail price essentially. So it would not work.
I mean, I would just never sell them wholesale.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless I got into a state where I could make them,
like you couldn't,
and they're priced at like $85, and I could sell them for 40 something, and it would be worth it. Or I would price it not at 50%. I would price it like 65 or 70%.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really depends, and you have to know how much it's worth, how much your pieces are worth. Like, I would never wholesale my fancier ones, you know, the ones that I do the underglaze on, because it takes like an hour to do them. Now, some people do, but those are the cups that are going to be like $100 at the store. And some places want that, but like I kind of go, wholesale is all about a lot of products for a little money, you know, in my opinion. So
efficiency has to be part of the equation. Yeah. You have to be efficient in what you're making.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to get super mathy with all of the stuff that Becca just talked about with figuring out what your materials and stuff are, you could just if you're comfortable with the price that you're at, if you to chop that at 50% or 60% or whatever, most wholesalers are going to do 50%. So if you were to chop that in half at 50% and you go with that number, are you comfortable getting that price for that item, considering you ship it to them and it's done and you get the check? Are you comfortable with that?
And if you're not, you need to reevaluate your prices.
And maybe there are other forms that you are comfortable with that number, but not that form that they're asking for, or maybe the wholesale price for that specific form needs to be higher. Like, okay, I'm willing to sell this one at 50%, but these forms I'm not.
Yeah. And
also that wholesale episode's 35, by the way, if you want to look at that. Wholesale and Team Management with Rebecca Prowse from Graves Co Pottery.
Yeah, and also okay, so back to quantity. I'm gonna say this, but this is not what I mean. Quantity versus quality. I guess I kind of always think of wholesale kind of like my friend who owns a pizza restaurant just a little ways away from me. She's always like, $1's $1. She's like, yeah, but you earned $1. So for me, if I wholesaled my wine glasses that take a minute to make on the wheel, and let's say 4 minutes total, maybe, and I made $1 off of each of those, and I made 250 of them, that doesn't seem like a lot, but that $1 adds up. And no, I'm not just making $1, but this is just an analogy.
But it's still cash in the pocket.
It's still cash in the pocket, and you're still making more than what you produced, essentially. But you have to do the math in order to make that work. Now, it just sometimes wholesale just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense for some people. Because they can't make the math work. And so that's something that you really have to consider and look at while you are.
And how big of we're talking about quality, or quantity, in relation to your inventory, is a wholesale order going to take a big dent out of your inventory that you could sell full price? Or are you in a situation like now where you're normally selling at shows, but you're taking quite a bit of time off from shows, which is the normal way that you would get inventory out, and wholesale might be an option for you to get rid of some of that.
Right.
Maybe that's where you're kind of exploring wholesale and thinking about it. Might not be a bad idea to try it.
Yeah, wholesale's definitely saved my ass during COVID, honestly. I feel right when it hit, a lot of my stores were so we still need stuff. Cool. And it's not a lot all the time, but $450 here and there 3 times a month is not terribly bad. Yeah, I make everything to order. I don't have a bunch of stuff on stock. I think that mostly it's been in the past I've been nervous about making things ahead of time because I didn't know what I would be selling and what I needed. But I think that now, since I've if I figure out my shit, if I did a back stock, it would be a lot easier because I have very set items.
Forms, yeah. I feel like you're to a point where you're confident in the forms and which ones move off the shelves quicker than others, and which ones you can have 20 of in the back stock, and which ones you need 60 of.
Well, and I never thought that I'd be a plant wholesaler either, a planter wholesaler. That was never. I thought it might happen, but I was not looking for it. Let's just say that.
But it the same thing happened. I'm selling consignment to this plant shop, and they've already sold. I've already got 60% is what I get for that consignment. So I've already got $400 in 2 months worth of selling, and I just started with them May or something like that. So it's I don't mind making planners. I love it because it's so simple,
so
and
easy.
Each one of them can be different, and there's no cleanup. There's clean the bottom edge, put a hole in the bottom, sign it, and it's good. And then when I glaze it, no problem because it's got a hole. The glaze just goes inside and outside.
Yeah, it's so
easily.
easy. It's so
problem.
easy. I get it.
I love it.
You know, I was looking at, okay, I took a picture. I'm going to have to find this. So, the place that I learned how to do pottery at is they primarily wholesale planters. That is it. That's their, like...
People love plants.
They love plants. Like, they only sell planters. And they're really good, too. Like, they're not bad planters. So, one could say that planters might be in my pottery blood. But... even though I do not make them as well as they do. But I took a screenshot off of the interwebs a couple weeks ago, and it was the prices for their planters. And I wanted to... this would be a good time to share it if I can find it, because the the prices of planters for them to make and for them to make a profit off of is so little. Like... it's unbelievable how...
well, also, like, the cost of actual plants. Have you ever went to a plant wholesaler and, like, saw what you could buy plants for?
Yeah.
And what people can resell them for? Like there's at Cotico up the street, the friends of ours that have a shop, they've been doing, like, plant sales and stuff. And you can buy succulent plants that are, like, 2-inch plants for $2. I mean, you could sell those for $8 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, or $6 or whatever. Like, they're a crazy markup, crazy easy profit as long as you can sell it. So, did you find it?
No, but I'm gonna go to the website and then we'll get back to it. But
okay.
Yeah, it is crazy. Okay, wait. Let's kind of get back to where we had we didn't make a list for this. That's why it's all over the board, because I'm doing it. So we talked about contracts. We talked about pricing a little bit.
I have a follow-up to pricing that could be good to mention. How do you handle the minimum amount?
Oh, my minimum amount is $200.
$200 wholesale?
Yeah.
So retail, the items that the person would be buying have to be $400 retail in order for them to fall into that wholesale price.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, when I started, I was talking with someone that was familiar with buying wholesale, and she bought from other makers, and she came to an art show, my very first art show, and bought a number of pieces at wholesale price for her shop. And I bought some stuff, and she was like, yeah, you should set a minimum amount that people should buy. So I probably I think my first number that I set was like 200 or something like that, or 225 was my minimum retail price, because I wasn't making enough production like I am now. So that's increased. I think it's 300 now is my minimum retail price. So they would get 150 wholesale at 50%. So what's the reasoning for setting a minimum?
So you don't have to do all the work and then not get paid for it. I mean, any order requires...
the quantity has to be high enough.
Yeah, any
for you
order
to
requires
make it
a little bit of work to go into it, right? Like, I have to do stuff to make that order be worth it, essentially.
The logistics and the back and forth and the communications besides the physical labor to make the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're banking on getting a certain quantity so that it's like, okay, I didn't have to put in the work to take this to a show and pack it up, and I'm putting it into a box or whatever and taking it right to the location that they're buying it, and they're just giving me a check, and that's it. So, yeah, what would you say someone starting out should set their minimum at?
$200.
$200 retail.
Well, and that also
wholesale?
depends on how much you are wholesaling for. Like, are you going to be like a small time wholesaler? Like, are you going to be more of like a consignment type wholesaler where you're only making 10 things? Because if you're only going to make 10 things, then $200 might be hard to get to. But if
10 things at $20 a piece would get you at $200 retail, so you would have to double that and make 20 things to get
right. But if you're making like I haven't, and like also I don't always if somebody came up to me and they were just a complete stranger, I'd be like, you have to order $200 worth of stuff to make it worth my time. because you have to like start a new customer and do all those things. And once you have the customer, you can, I mean, I've been lenient once I have a customer, but
and that's because the wholesaler is not getting a 50% discount because they're just because they're buying a lot of stuff. It's because they're also selling it to make a profit.
Right.
So it's not like a customer is the same as a wholesaler because, you expect the wholesaler to pay the taxes on it and all this stuff. It's not the same as, hey, I want to buy 10 bowls from you for my set. Do I get a wholesale price for that?
No. Yeah, a wholesaler is a repeat customer.
The reason you're willing to do that is...
A wholesaler is a repeat customer, and that's the idea behind it.
Right.
And if they're not going to repeat their order, then what did you just do? You just sold them for half off.
Right.
You might as well just sold them retail and told them to screw it. But I found the list. Okay. This is their retail price, and just imagine this.
From who? Who's this from? By the way?
Bruning Pottery.
Okay.
This is who I used to... I don't know what their wholesale cut is. A lot of people do 70-30. Some people do 50-50. Some people do 80... Not 80. 60-40. So I don't know what it is, but this is a retail price. And this is what a production potter that has been in business as a production potter for years is doing. Okay? Like, we're talking 30, 40 years. 1-inch planter retails at $6. 2-inch planter...
One
inch?
Yeah. That is tiny.
And these are all planters with plates attached. 2-inch planter is $7.50. 3-inch planter $8.50. 4-inch planter $12. 6-inch planter $17. 8-inch planter is $26. If you've ever made an 8-inch planter, then you know how ridiculous 50% of 26 is.
Is that like 8 by 8 by 8? Is that like 8 inches tall? Is that what that means? Wide. Man, that's not small at all, and they're selling it retail for $28.
$26. 10 inches wide is $40. 12 inch $60. 14 inch $110.
Dang.
This is and I'm not saying this. I'm not saying
you said that is their retail.
That's their
price
retail price. I'm not saying this is right or this is wrong. I'm just saying that they are an business operating, and they make money off of this. And I'm telling you right now that the retail, like, they're not making a bunch on retail. They're making way more on wholesale. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that because that's them making 2,000 pots a week. Okay? Like, that is the business of wholesale for them, right? And,
it's all in quantity.
It's quantity. And, like, so I would recommend you look at, you could look at a potter in your area and look at just their retail prices. Like I said, you don't have to know what their wholesale prices are. They could be totally different than what you think they are. But look at their retail prices and see what they're selling at. If they have an operation that has 15 employees and those employees are making those pieces and they're producing those pieces and it's a fluid operation, then they're making money off of even a small amount. They're making money off of that $6 planter that was an inch wide. So and no, they may not be making a lot of money, but they may have sold 300 of those this week. If they made $1 off of that, they made $300 off of that, like profit, not cost. Profit, then they're still making money. So that's what I was talking about when I was saying wholesale is about little money for a lot of pieces.
Yeah. A little bitty profit for a lot. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think of the next thing I can. So what are the other benefits besides like repeat customer, getting a check immediately? Do they brand your stuff that it's from you in that area? Does it help you get noticed by other customers and stuff that know your work in that area?
Sometimes. I mean, I've had people that buy stuff from my stores and then find me and like get other stuff, but I don't really work really hard at branding my stuff all that well, so. I'm like an anti-business person. I'm like, like, the fact that I've been successful in any regard just proves that anybody can be successful, because I literally try my hardest not to be successful sometimes. Unintentionally, but that's the way it works. I'm like, I don't need to sign my pieces. Bah.
What about the bookkeeping part of it? Is there benefits or drawbacks to that side of it?
No, not really.
And the logistics part?
You have to make sure that you're getting... Okay, so if you're doing wholesale, you got to get their resale permit. So they are reselling your pieces. That means that you need their reseller's license, reseller's permit, which is usually involved in a number. If it's out of state, there's some weird things that you have to go through, but it's not that difficult, and usually it doesn't really matter. But definitely talk to your Department of Revenue about that.
What's the reason for that, to get that?
So you don't have to charge them tax. So if you... It's
like an agreement that they have to say, here's my business number. I will be paying the sales tax on this when it sells.
Yeah, I will be charging tax and paying sales tax. It's basically so that you're not double dipping into the... into tax and like paying the government more than you need to. Because if I was to, let's say you were reselling my stuff. So Ryan, RD Ceramics is selling my pottery. Okay, we're just gonna go with this. And I sold it to Ryan, and let's say I charged him tax. And then he went ahead and then charged tax again. Then we would both be paying tax off of one item, and that is not okay.
Right.
We already have enough.
It's not okay because you're paying more than you need to.
You're paying more than you need to. So instead, I get Ryan's reseller's permit. I have his number on file, and it's in my filing cabinet. Print it out, put it in your filing cabinet, and then that is an agreement between you two saying that I am selling my products to Ryan with no tax included. In the assumption that he will be selling the pieces for tax. So, and if, let's say Ryan was the middleman and he was selling it to another person, he would be doing the exact same thing. He would be, like, let's say, it's like your suppliers, right? So...
Yep. I was going to relate it to that.
So, like a clay supplier. So, they get supplies. Let's use... Kemper.
Queen City Clay. I buy stuff from Queen City Clay.
Queen City Clay. So, but no, I'm trying to think of something like glaze. Okay, let's use Mako glazes, okay? Mako glazes are used in a product and they will be sold. When you put the glaze on the piece, it fires up and it becomes part of the product and it is sold for tax, okay? So, Tacoma Clay Arts Center gets their glazes from Mako. They do not pay taxes on those glazes. And then if they
do not pay what? Sales tax, right?
Yeah, they don't pay sales taxes on those pieces. Now, it like separates at that point, right? So, they could either A, sell it to me, okay? And I would not pay taxes because I am selling those pieces because
you're using the product on a finished piece that will then be sold to the public.
That will then be sold to the public with sales tax. Or on another level, or I'm just selling the bottle again to a person. Or they will sell it to somebody else who does not have a reseller's permit, and then they charge tax on that. So in one regard, it continues one step further, and on the other regard, it stops there. Did that make any sense?
Right. It does make sense. I hope people understand it, but I started doing this. I think Becca told me about this like a year and a half ago with regards to buying materials like clay. If you're buying clay from a supplier and you are buying 1,000 pounds, you should be using a reseller
if you're selling it. If you're reselling
if you're using the clay to sell your product, then you should be using a reseller's permit to avoid paying sales tax on it. I was paying sales tax for a long time. Now I don't have to pay 7% Ohio sales tax on the clay because I'm going to turn around, make something out of it, and sell it to the public and charge tax. So
call your Department of Revenue. Make sure that all of that rings true in your state. And because I've heard a lot of people argue on the fact of, like, whether it's a cost of goods sold and blah, 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 like, if you do charge taxes on certain things. So make sure you call your Department of Revenue and or an accountant to double check that before you, like, go and do everything. I have... Like I said, I used to work in the painting industry, and it's the exact same thing. I would have never known about resellers permits had I gone into pottery without being in the painting industry first and selling paint, because painters buy paint at tax-free because they put it on people's houses, and then they sell that product. So, yeah, it's a very confusing, very annoying situation, and it's different in every single state.
It doesn't factor into, like, tools and stuff, so you can't buy, like, trimming tools, because that's not something you're going to sell unless you're a school or something and you're selling tool kits or something
so
like that.
I buy direct from Kemper for my students, and so I have tool kits, and those I buy at tax-free so that I sell them with tax. So.
Yeah. That was a good little add-on to this episode.
That
does relate to wholesale because
it's a huge
way,
part of wholesale. I feel like wholesale has a lot to do with behind the scenes as opposed to doing with before, like at the scenes.
Would you not wholesale to someone that did not have a seller's permit, or that did not give you something in return?
Okay. I got in a huge argument with some lady a long time ago. Oh God, it was so bad. And I was so frustrated, and this lady was so not okay. And she's like, I'm an LLC. I don't need a reseller's permit. I'm like, yeah, you do. And she's like, no, I don't. I was like, yeah, you do.
Because it's one of those where you...
And I was like, I can't work for you.
You don't want to, tell them, you need to do this. But it's like, I'm not going to sell it to you unless you give me this. It's a piece of paper that tells me your business info, and it basically has the identifying information for the business, how much value I think they bought it for, and then the description of what it is for the most part.
For a reseller?
I think that's kind of the extent. That's what's on the reseller permit, or the little thing that I've got before in Ohio.
Yeah, no, mine's just the UBI number. It describes
what it is.
Mine's just the UBI number, and then you just give it to the other person, and then if somebody audits them, that basically says, hey, this person is responsible for this amount of money, and then
I'm saying it does have their number on it, but it also has a description of what they bought and the value of what they bought, so they kind of know how much tax is expected on it.
Nope, mine doesn't have that at all. I do that in bookkeeping.
It doesn't have
in my
price and stuff.
In my QuickBooks.
Yeah, I've had a wholesaler that wasn't really sure what a reseller's permit was.
It's, you know what? I'm not even it's complicated, man. There's so many things in business that's so complicated. And I'm not saying, so many people go into business, including us, go into business, and we don't know jack shit about what to do correctly. That's why having a good bookkeeper, having a good accountant is so important. And also having a business mentor or something like that. It's so important because you could be doing something wrong for years. like years. And you don't know it. And then what if you do get audited and then you're up a creek? You're small businesses usually don't get fined that much, but sometimes you can get in a lot of trouble, and ignorance is not bliss when it comes to the government. Ignorance is your responsibility.
If you get a check for the IRS, you better pay that thing.
So it's really important to have all of your ducks in a row when it comes to business, and wholesale just brings out one more step further. For instance, in your books, you need to have this is another thing. In your books, you need to have a separate location for all of your wholesale interactions, right? So I use QuickBooks, so it has a tax bracket that is wholesale. I have out-of-state wholesale and in-state wholesale. So that in Washington, you have to put in all of the counties that you made money in, and then the deductions portion has the wholesale portion in it. So let's say that in the month of March, I made $3,000. Okay, this is hypothetical. I made $3,000 and $2,000 of that was wholesale, right? I would put that I made $3,000 and then I'd go into the deductions and put that I made $2,000 in wholesale, and it would take that tax out, so I wouldn't have to pay that tax, but I would have to pay a fee on the wholesale products that I sell. It's a very small fee.
You're talking about when you're paying sales tax.
Yeah, when you're paying sales tax at the end.
Quarter or that month or whatever.
Yeah. So just don't let the wholesale interaction, like, don't let the wholesale sales get lost within your bookkeeping. They're important, and they save you money. Because, you don't want to pay sales tax on that at the end. So keep that in mind.
It's complex, people. What would you say to not... Are you scaring people out of doing wholesale now because of what
No,
we
do it. It's a good experience.
I think we talked about it on an episode. We were like, nobody is ready to do wholesale.
I think I did say that. I'm
wholesale.
like, your stuff isn't good enough to do wholesale. Mine's not good enough to do wholesale.
It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Go ahead and do it. Try it out. Do your best. I've gotten so lucky. My wholesalers are the nicest people in the entire universe. And I do small scale stuff. Like, it's not big stuff. Like, working for a huge company could be completely different than what I'm talking about. I work for mom and pop shops, and a lot of the stuff that I do, like my most favorite wholesale client, she just, when I'm in Leavenworth, she just comes into my booth and takes all the stuff that I have extra, and then takes it over to her shop. And but I'm lucky if I don't have a piece. Like, if I had 10 instead of 12, my wholesalers are like, it's fine, just do it the next time. Like, I've been shot with the arrow of luck, and not everybody is like that. Everybody has to have their own certain experiences. But what I will say is, if you have small clients, try to get to know them, try to form a relationship with them, because then it'll be a lot easier to develop your product line and your relationship with them in the future. Definitely.
I like the being upfront with them with the list of what you're promising.
Yeah.
What about we didn't talk about timelines. How do you factor in timelines and what you should be committing to and meeting those and not overpromising and under-delivering and all that stuff?
Oh, I also don't forget to oh no, it just left my brain.
I don't know what left your brain, but her head is down on the table.
Remind me of Net 30. Okay, let's talk about this.
Net 30.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
That sounds like we just started another episode. So we're talking about timelines. How do you know what timeline you should be setting for a wholesale order?
I do like a couple...
Given that you're not...
I do like a week...
You're not over-promising and under-delivering.
Yeah, I do like a week over. I would rather say it's going to take me longer and then give it to them earlier than tell them that I'm going to have it done in a week and have it done in 3. My timeline is a month. That's pretty much it.
And you're also full-time at this, so you have X number of things going on and other orders and a shop to take care of. And, for me, I might be able to get away with a month if it's, 30 pieces or something. If it's like 100 pieces, it might be more like 2 months. But
yeah,
that's based on your timeline. And some people are better at estimating time than others.
Yeah. Oh,
I would say generally I try to leave some excess time because I know stuff can happen or other things are going to come up a week from now, just in life or in pottery, that's going to happen that I can't plan for right now. So I would much rather under promise and over deliver is kind of what I'm shooting for.
Yeah.
So try to promise, I think I can get something to you the week of this week, which is 4 weeks from now or whatever. I kind of do this with customs too. I kind of plan out and kind of estimate, okay, how many pieces am I making? And I'll make more than I need for sure. You should always make more than you need anyways because of if stuff happens, because in our medium, if you get to the end and something's wrong and something cracks and you make exactly what you need, you're shot and you got to go 2 weeks again or whatever of making this thing to get it to a finished state. Make more than you need for sure.
Yeah, I also along that line, make tests. It's not a race. Sometimes I think it's a race, and no matter what, if a wholesaler says, I need this in 2 weeks, be like, sorry. I have,
especially if it's a glaze or something,
yeah.
like if it's a glaze layering and you're like, okay, I'm like, make a test, put it in the kiln, or make 2 tests or something, put it in there, and like be confident in what you're going to do before you glaze like 16 of these things.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be that far up a
well,
creek,
and if it's like
16 things need to be redone completely.
If it's like a significant thing, especially if the wholesaler's local, make a test and give it to them, make sure that they like it. But also, like, it's for your cost, too, because I have totally messed up when I was either, like, hey, can you make me a 7-inch planter? And I was like, sure. And then I was like, oh, shit. Like, this is way more work than I thought it was going to be for the price that I said. And,
yeah. Was that a custom order?
No, it was... No.
Or the planter wholesale order?
Yeah, no, it's my regular planters. But
yeah.
it just, I was doing like smaller pieces and then they wanted larger pieces and then once I started doing the larger pieces, no, twice the size does not necessarily mean twice the money. It might mean 2/3 more money, because it takes so much more space. We're working in electric kilns here. It's not like...
Yeah, I made that mistake with the custom that I just did with planters. I mean, I'm fine with the price because I was like, okay, I need one that is 4x4x4, which is a little bit bigger than the one that I just did, and I sold it for $34. And then I was like, okay, and then they need a 5x5x4, so it was like similar but a little bit wider, and then they need like a 5x5x5. So I was like, okay, just a little bit bigger, but it's not a small amount. It's like, between that smallest one and the biggest one, it's probably like 2 pounds of clay or a pound and a half of clay difference or something like that.
Yeah.
Because as you get bigger, it's like, oh, I didn't realize how much this... And then the plates become like mini plates. They're no longer like spoon rest size. They're a lot bigger.
Yeah, and it takes a lot more space.
So,
like my 4-inch planters, 4 or 5-inch planters, are 1 pound of clay. My 7-inch planters are 3 pounds of clay. Like,
yes,
the difference is like so much different. And I remember I was like trying to do it like in 1.5 pounds or like 2 pounds, and then it's what is it, 3 pounds? I can't remember. I have it written down somewhere. But oh, that's another thing. Okay. This podcast could go on forever. Okay, so yeah, it's just I totally underestimated the size. I also did that with a large plate recently. And but just test your pieces first. Make sure you put them all the way through. Make sure that you know what you're doing. It's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Okay, so, and if they can't wait, then
I would say, like, don't even commit to a price. If you haven't made the thing before and you don't know what it's going to take, don't commit to a price. Don't feel pressured like you have to commit to a price. I think they would respect you more to say, honestly, I've never made that form before. Can I make a couple tests and get back to you on a price? Yeah. Because there's unknowns here.
The journey at the beginning is very much like back and forth. Like, hey, do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? No, yes, no, yes. It's very much like a conversation. So, just make sure that you are making your piece and that you can make your piece, because that's also another thing. If you make it and then you realize that like making 40 of them in the future is not an option, that's going to put you in a hole. So, just keep that in mind. Okay, net 30. So, payment. There's a couple options of payment.
We mentioned the deposit first.
We mentioned deposits. So now, you can either pay on receipt, net 30, net 60. Don't do net 60. No, don't do net 60. Would not recommend. A lot of people will ask for net 30. A lot of businesses will.
What does that mean?
Net 30 means that when you give them the products, they have 30 days to pay it. Now, and they will wait till the very last day. I do this with some clients. They had to pay me on receipt the first time. I will never do net 30 on the first order. But once you kind of earn their trust, or they earn your trust, or you earn their, both ways. Once you guys have trust between you guys, then net 30 can be okay. I mean, I don't live my business in a, I'm usually about a month ahead anyway, so waiting 30 days is not that big of an issue. But most of my clients, they pay on receipt, which means pay immediately.
It's also one of those things where I would much rather bookend this interaction. Well, I'm not saying you're going to close the book and never talk to this person again, but it's kind of nicer to get on receipt if you can.
Oh, for sure. That's the ideal
because you're
situation.
kind of like, hey, we're done. We're done with this this order, this transaction.
Yeah, it's definitely the ideal situation.
Like, okay.
I'm just saying that those are the
because
options.
if you get to 30 days and you're like, oh, now I got to bug them again about this thing, and then Corona hit like 2 weeks ago. It's like, oh, man. Yeah, they can't pay it. Now what?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I need that money now. So.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have consistency with net 30 now? Is that what most people are doing because they're consistent?
I only have one client that does net 30. One client during coronavirus, I dropped stuff off and said, pay me when you can. But that's because I knew that she was in a worse spot than I was in, and that needed to happen. So, but yeah, I normally do pay on receipt, and it's normally pretty upfront. But I will also say, as a courtesy to your customers, especially if they're a small business, and if you wait to put in the check, make sure you message them and say, hey, I'm about to put in your check right now. Is that okay with you?
You're saying if they don't do it on receipt, or when they do?
Let's say my customer sends me a check and then I forget to cash it. Okay, like right when they send it, and I forget to cash it, and like maybe 5 days later, I'm like, oh right, I have to cash that check. I know that seems ridiculous because everybody's like, I want my money in the bank. It happens. But
I do that with consignment checks.
Yeah.
But it's usually for a smaller amount, not a wholesale amount.
Yeah, if it's a small business and it is a large amount, especially like over $500, I always message my customer and say, hey, I'm about to cash this. Is it okay for me to cash this? Because just as a courtesy, sometimes.
You know what it's like to bounce a check.
Right.
I'm sure there's overdraft fees and whatever else goes on with
like
your bank when you bounce a check.
Yeah, and we're small businesses. Like, anything can happen. So they could maybe not have that money in the bank, but it's coming tomorrow. So, like, just reach out and say, hey, I'm cashing this. Is that okay? I find that people are pretty appreciative of that. So, okay. What else were we talking about?
Do you only take payment? Are most of your wholesalers giving you checks for stuff, or are you doing like invoicing through Square or anything like that?
Checks or bank transfers. Do not take payment over a credit card. You are already getting paid half of what you're doing. If they pay you with a credit card, you have to pay the percentage, like the 2.7%. Don't do that.
3% or whatever, yeah.
On all my wholesale accounts, it's either bank transfer or checks.
Okay.
No matter what.
Yeah, I think all of mine in the past have been checks for them. I think they've all been checks.
Or cash. I mean, cash is fine too. But.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you do the same for... Do you do anything different for like a custom order? I think my custom orders, I just do a Square invoice because it's easy to document exactly what you're promising and all that stuff and photos. And
I do an invoice through QuickBooks, but yeah.
Okay.
So, and I just do bank transfer. Like, bank transfers are free with QuickBooks. I have a few clients that won't ever send me a bank transfer. I'm like, it's
Is
just
that like
as
a
easy.
Zelle payment? Or something like that? Is that
no? It's just
like when you say bank transfer.
It's like through QuickBooks, and they just put in their account number, and then it pulls out of their account.
Immediate draw from their account.
Yeah. Okay.
It's basically like a check. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's essentially a check,
but
it's
digitally.
Just digitally. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that.
What else about wholesale?
I had another thing and I forgot it. Of course. We were talking about. Net 30. No, we were talking about what we were talking about before that. Shipping.
We were talking about timelines.
Shipping.
But, ooh, that's a good. Yeah. Who pays the shipping?
Customer pays the shipping, always. Customer pays shipping. Oh my god. Did I tell you about the time that the box fell out of my car?
I think you did, yeah.
That was like...
Were you on your way there, or you were in the parking lot, like, about to leave or something?
Yeah, it fell out on the highway near my shop. And
on the highway?
Yeah. Okay.
While you were driving?
2 months ago, maybe, or a month ago, I was packaging up this order. It was like 36 mugs, and it's going down to Humboldt County. And I don't know if I was like high that day. By the way, I don't smoke weed, so I would have been high on life, I suppose. But the box was so heavy. It was in a 20 by 20 pound. It was on a 20 by 20 box, and I put it in the back of my car. I put it on top of a blanket. If it had been just in the car and there was no blanket, it would have been fine. I put it on the top of a blanket, and then I just drove away. I forgot to close the door. I forgot to close the back door.
The trunk?
Of my Subaru. And, so it's like an SUV, right? Shit. So I forgot to close the back door. And, it just didn't close. Like, I did close it, but it didn't close, and it opened up. And so I drove up, and then it was up this hill, and at Me Tierra, when I turned right, I had to go fast because there was people coming because it was onto a major highway, and then the box fell out of my car. I didn't hear it, but the guy behind me did hear it, and so he
he definitely heard it. He probably ran over it.
He drove forward and then turned around and got it. He picked it up, and then wait. I get to the mail stop. By the way, if I had just gone Main Street, it would have been fine. We would have been fine. If I had just gone the slow route, it would have been totally good. So I get to the mail stop. I get out of my car. My car door's open. And I'm like, what the heck? And there's no box to be found. And I'm like, oh no. And so then I drive back. The same way that I come from. And I go all the way to the shop and I don't see the box. And I'm like, how did a 20 by 20 box just disappear in this was a mile away. We're talking about like a mile away.
That's not that far.
No, it was not far at all. And then I'm like driving and then I get a call on my phone. And I was like, hi, do you have my box? And I didn't even know who it was. And he's like, yeah, I do.
Oh, gosh.
Can you come to Lowe's and pick it up? And so, thankfully, my name was on the label. So he called me. And bless you, good sir.
Oh, my gosh.
And the corner got smashed in. I picked up I opened it up and went through it. I put another box to reinforce the corner. And I messaged my wholesaler and I was like, just so you know,
this box has been through some shit.
Just so you know, it's been a hell of a day. The box had some issues, and I was like, it's been a year, and she was like, it has indeed. But everything it was all intact, and that's how good I am at packing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, packing up orders. I pack up orders. If I'm going to ship them, I pack them up with corrugated cardboard, 2 different sizes, 4-inch and 6-inch. I go around, if it's a mug at least, I go around wide with the 6-inch, and then I go around the skinnier part with the 4-inch. And then I put bubble wrap on the bottom of the box if it's a 20 by 20, and then I stack them all in like butt to butt. And then, or not bubble wrap, peanuts on the bottom, and I stack them all in butt to butt, and then I just keep stacking until I get to the top, and then I stack them all, and then I put a bunch of paper or peanuts or whatever on the top. So it's a lot less packing than you would think, but because every mug is wrapped in its own individual box in the corrugated cardboard, I've never had anything break. So
I did that trick for those mini planters / shot glasses that I shipped wholesale to Colorado like 2 months ago. I think I shipped 50 of them or something like that. Very. And if you want to, I made like little tubes. Yeah. And then kind of put them.
Yeah, and if you want a visual representation, I have those on my Instagram page, 5 Lines Pottery Studio, in the highlights. I actually have the whole setup for doing those.
Nice. I started getting that corrugated cardboard for wrapping some stuff. I think I got it for the mystery boxes. It's pretty good. They mixed it up. They were supposed to give me a 6-inch, but they gave me a 9-inch.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice because I can like cut it in half, and it's nice to use it that way, or I can use it for plates or something at the 9-inch, or big bowls for 9-inch, and then, or I could do like a 3-inch and 6-inch. It's kind of nice.
I think I have an 18-inch or 15-inch that I have as well, and that's been really helpful. But yeah, corrugated cardboard is a lifesaver if you're shipping wholesale. Don't use bubble wrap. Don't use bubble wrap. Just remember.
Why not?
Just remember, air expands and contracts within different climates and altitudes. So, if you go to Colorado, your bag of chip is going to be inflated, and then when you go back down to Tennessee, it's going to be deflated. So, when you go down to like sea level. So, air moves a lot more than paper does. I always use paper, peanuts, styrofoam. If somebody sends me styrofoam, I don't ever buy it. That's not okay. Yes, bubble wrap is great in the small forms if you're wrapping one piece over and over, but as far as wholesale goes, you want to make sure that you have as much, like, you want to make sure the shipping is cheap. And, it only cost me $30 to ship a 20 by 20 box that weighs 45 pounds down to California from Washington. So,
who are you shipping that
FedEx.
with? FedEx. I started doing that too.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty reasonable. Anything more than probably, I don't know, 5 pounds or so, I'll use FedEx. Otherwise, I'll use USPS. But yeah, FedEx was like not that bad.
I will never use USPS for a large box, but yes.
Yeah, it's probably, you're comparing, like, if it's a $17 box for FedEx, it might be like 25 or 30 for USPS. Plus, like, that's what FedEx does. It's a freight or ground,
right.
Like, whatever. Like, that's what they specialize
Don't
in.
forget, the United States Postal Service is for postal, not parcel. Postal, not parcel. So, the fact that you can even ship packages with the United States Postal Service is a blessing to you. That doesn't mean that they know how to, like, work with them in any regard. They have had to evolve,
adapt
to work with packages. That is why there's so many issues with the United States Postal Service.
That's probably why they offer the, like, free boxes and stuff to incentivize people to use it. I mean, that's what I do. I get their free boxes, and it's free marketing for them so that when they see it put on doorsteps, you can see where it came from and where the boxes came from and their specific sizes, so they know what's going to go onto certain trucks and all this stuff. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes. Is there anything else?
I think we covered it. I mean, we covered it from making the thing to delivering the thing and getting payment, so I'm sure we left something out.
I'm sure we did. Contracts, relationships. Make sure you're having good relationships with your people.
Do you ever check up on them, or do you always wait for them to kind of...
I just wait.
Ask. Yeah.
I mean, the ones that I talk to on a weekly basis, yeah, I check up on them. But if it's like somebody... Like, I have a customer that only buys, like... He buys 150 pinch pots, and it's, like, very rarely. He, like, goes with another company, too, someplace in Montana. But he'll, put in an order, like, once every 3 months, 4 months, and I'm like, I just wait. And then I was like,
right.
And I'm like, oh, great, okay, cool. I'll do that. Quick and easy, $450.
I did have one last thing that maybe it's good to leave off on, because I think this is something that you really strive for. There's a note in our things that says your pieces have to be perfect, and you have to be able to produce consistent pieces one to the next.
Oh my God,
so,
yes.
This is probably a good place to end on, but what would you say about that? What does that mean?
Oh, yes. Don't have cracks in the bottom of your pieces if you're sending it for wholesale. You're a representation of yourself, the store that you're selling to, and then when they sell, the customer. So you need to make sure that your pieces are up to par. If your if you have sharp like things on your pieces, if you have little like glaze imperfections, unless that's the way the piece is supposed to be, if you have little S cracks in the bottom of your pieces, if you have cracks in the handles of your pieces, do not sell them. Make 10 extra and choose from the best, okay? I would rather send them one less than send them one that's shitty, okay?
And don't think of it like, okay, I'm getting 50% for it, so they should be happy with it because it's
negative.
They're still getting it for a discount.
Yeah.
Or don't think of it like, hey, I'm getting rid of this piece because it's out of my life because it's cracked. It should be your bird to handle that. They need to get top quality stuff.
Yeah. It is once you delve into the wholesaling world, that is I will put stuff that's maybe got, like, I have a second section in my booth, and maybe the rim of a piece is a little warped, but I don't really consider it a second because I know somebody will come up and be like, oh, this is warped, I love it, it's mine. But they see it. But if you're selling it to, and I'm not saying I've been perfect, but if you're selling it to a customer, especially if that customer is away, you need to make sure that all of your pieces are up to par. When I deliver my pieces down to Renton, to my plant store, I usually go through them a third time while I am putting them in the shop. I rifle through them a little bit. If I see a crack or anything, I will pull it. And a lot of the times, she's like, oh, I wouldn't have even seen that. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I know you would.
Yeah, don't try to sneak one past it. You'd much rather
I know you wouldn't have even
and
seen
be
it.
Like, okay,
yeah,
okay, I don't want them to stumble upon this, or a customer, an end user customer that's going to buy it from them, to like stumble upon something and be like, this has a crack in it, and then they're kind of in a weird position because they're like, they gave me a thing that was cracked, I'm selling, and it's like, what do you do?
I forgot the most important thing. Literally the most important thing, like what I should have started off with. Make sure your pieces are food safe. Unless it's a planter and it has a hole in it, make sure your pieces are food safe and they're tested. And I mean quality tested, shock tested in the freezer or whatever with the hot water, leaching tested. You need to make sure that your pieces and your glazes are up to par, and it kind of goes in with having pieces that are quality. And, yeah. But make sure that they're up to par as far as food standards go, because once they leave you, they've left you. And
yeah, you're not there to stand up for your piece. Kind of has to stand up for itself, as well as whatever the seller, wholesaler is selling. Just think of it. They should be able to be confident that it's going to be safe.
Yeah, think of it this way: if you buy something from Target, if you bought an Apple Watch from Target and it wasn't working, would you? Oh no, that's not a good example. If you bought a toothbrush holder at Target and it wasn't working, or it was broken, it had a crack in it, and you figured it out later, would you take that piece back to the person that made it, or would you take it back to Target to return it?
You take it back to Target because you don't know who the original maker is.
Right.
So.
If you sell them a piece and they don't catch the fact that it has a crack in the bottom or a crack in the rim or whatever, or a glaze defect, they've lost money. Because they lost money. It's a bad on their reputation, which in turn makes them kind of sour to you a little bit, that you would give them something like that. So it's important, it's important that you do that. Like, I recently sent a second actually to a wholesaler, but not because I wanted them to sell it. I marked it. I was like, this is a second. And I told her about it. I said, I'm sending you a second. It's free. I just had an extra. It's free. You can use it. And she's like, great, my employees will love this. But yeah, but if I heard that one of my pieces was cracked and they sold it to somebody, and then a customer was not satisfied, and the store that I sold it to got the brunt of that anger, I would be devastated. And so should you. I'm so obnoxious when I walk into stores and there's pottery. I look at them, and at one time I picked up a piece and I was like, this has a crack in the bottom. I was really loud. It was a long time ago. I don't do that anymore, I guess, but I will take it up to the, I will, if I see something that has a crack, I will bring it up to the counter and say, I'm not buying this. However, like, I wasn't planning on buying this. However, I thought you should know that it does have a crack in it. Because.
Do you tell him, like, I'm a potter and I'm familiar with what should and shouldn't be safe?
Yeah,
and
but it's important. I mean, like, can you imagine, like being in a shop and selling something and then them having that it being cracked or whatever? Like, I would so much rather somebody come up and say, hey, I just want to let you know. That's like if you're walking around with toilet paper hanging out of your butt. You know, like, you'd rather have some old lady come up and be like, yo, dude, just so you know. Instead of walking into your job or whatever, you know? Yeah. And
just kind of making an excuse and calling that, well, it's handmade, is not good enough.
No.
Because it's like, hey, you have to stand up for the quality.
Well, you can create your own standards. You know? You can create your own standards to what quality is to you. So what craft is to me might not be what craft is to you. But that needs to be upfront and say, like, you know, to the customer and say, just so you know, these are my pieces. This is standard of what is my quality of work. So if you are not okay with selling that quality, or you know, whatever quality it may be, then it might not be a good fit. So you can create your own standard, but live up to that standard that you create. If every single one of your pieces has a crack because it's intentional, then so be it. But every single one of your pieces better have a crack because it's intentional. Like, you know? So, right. Or if it's crazed intentionally, then that needs to be said, you know? Or, like, what have you. It just needs to be food safe, really. But, yes.
Right.
Crazing is a whole different situation, which we won't get into. Mm-hmm. But it's fine. It's fine. If it's crazed, it's fine. Okay.
All right. On that note.
This was a long one. I apologize.
Everything. I think people like it.
Hopefully. I don't know. All of my opinions.
Which people don't agree with sometimes.
Well, you can't please them all. Anyway.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you could find the podcast at wheeltalkpodcast, or you could find myself at RD Ceramics. That's R's in Ryan, D's in Durban, Ceramics.
Or you can find me at 5 Lines Pottery Studio. That's the number 5. And don't forget, share this with your friends, like us on Instagram, and don't forget to write a review. It helps us an awful lot. Thanks.